A famous stylist was stabbed more than 30 times in her own beauty salon, in the center of the multi-million city, and somehow no signs of the forced entry, no witnesses. And the main suspect, he has a perfect alibi. A crime so perfectly planned that the killer almost got away with it. Almost. Katharina was a very famous stylist. She had her own TV show, she had appearance on different other TV shows, and she had a very successful beauty salon in the center of the multi-million city. The morning of the 19th of November 2015, a client arrives to her scheduled appointment to Katharina's beauty salon. The client sees Katharina's car parked near the salon, so she assumes that the stylist is already here and everything is okay. She knocks on the door, but it's locked. She tries to open, but it's locked. So she knocks on the window, but the windows are covered. She calls Katharina, she doesn't answer. She calls again, she doesn't answer, again and again. So at that point, something feels very off, and she calls the administrator of the salon. And when the woman arrives with the key, they both enter the beauty salon. They open the door with the key, they step inside, and they freeze. From the first minutes, it was obviously a murder, so they called the police. Police arrived. Katharina was stabbed more than 30 times. When a person is stabbed over 30 times, usually it's something personal. There are signs of struggle everywhere in the salon. She has cuts on her hands, so she obviously fought for her life. Of course, investigators considered robbery, and they checked her bag and the salon money, but everything was still there. No one took anything, so it wasn't a robbery. And then they noticed something else. The lock on the door, it wasn't broken, so most likely Katharina invited someone in. She knew the person. And don't forget the 30 stab wounds with the scissors. So at this point, policemen think, yeah, that looks personal. She knew the attacker. There's something deeper in there, rage, obsession, revenge, something like that. But here's the thing, there were no evidence, no fingerprints, no cameras in the salon, although it was the center of the city. No weapon, although investigators did find a few dark hairs on Katharina's clothing. And it matters because Katharina was blonde. The policemen gathered this one evidence they had and sent it for DNA testing, but that will take some time. In the meanwhile, investigators decided to look into her personal life. It turned out that Katharina was very stressed in the days leading to her murder. And what investigators found wasn't really a surprise. Guess what? She was divorcing her husband. After nearly 10 years, she left her husband Rustam. And their relationships? Well, let's just say they were complicated. At first, everything was great. I mean, they met in a cafe, they started dating, they were in love, everything was so great. But with time, Rustam became extremely jealous, controlling. He checked her messages constantly, he didn't let her go anywhere. He showed up at her workplace unannounced. He watched her constantly, and friends say that after his visits, Katharina would often cry. Then it got worse. He started physically abusing her. At one point, he tried to strangle her, and Katharina did report that to the police. But then she withdrew her complaint because they had kids together, and she said that she didn't want to upset her kids, and that's why she withdrew that complaint from the police. But she made another decision. She decided to file for the divorce. She took her kids and she left Rustam. And for the last 3 years of their marriage, Rustam wasn't making any money. So Katharina was the breadwinner. She was the only one who was supporting him and their kids. So here's the motive here. Case solved, right? Of course, to investigators, her husband immediately stands out and he became the main suspect. The police found out that besides his motive, he actually had a criminal past. He was found guilty in the rape of a minor in the 90s. I don't think Katharina really knew about that when she married this man. So here's the perfect suspect. He definitely has a motive. But the problem is that he has an alibi. The phone records show that he was at home at the time of the murder. And he passed a polygraph test, so he was looking innocent. And that's where it gets tricky. Also, on paper, his alibi is solid. But the details? They just don't make sense. So the investigators noticed cuts on his hands, just like Katharina had. They also searched his apartment, and the apartment had a strong smell of bleach. Kinda strange, right? But the police didn't have any proofs. The police checked all of the cameras they could find in the neighborhood, and they did find a suspicious man that was following Katharina. But the man was hiding from the cameras. He was like hiding with the hood, so the police couldn't see his face. At this point, the main investigator did something very smart. He decided to take the same route the killer did and to check for maybe some hidden cameras that he didn't notice. And he found it. That's how he found a very small camera at some small local shop. So he went inside, introduced himself, and said that he needed footage from the day of the murder. And the owner of the shop said that that footage was actually bought by another man a few days ago. So someone bought that footage. And thank God the owner of the shop had a phone number of that man. He didn't know his name, he didn't know anything, but he had a phone number. And by that phone number, they were able to establish that it was bought by Alexander. And Alexander turned out to be a friend of Rustam. So Alexander was brought into interrogation, and police asked a very reasonable question. Why did you buy that footage? Alexander said that he heard from another of mutual friends that Rustam may have been at the crime scene. So he decided to check, basically he decided to do the same thing the main investigator did. He decided to check for some hidden cameras, and he found that camera first, and the owner of the shop sold the footage. At home, Alexander looked through the footage and he saw Rustam. So he recognized his friend, and he admitted that it was a shock, he didn't know what to do, and he was going to tell the police. But it's been a few days, he didn't report Rustam, so it's a question, would he report his friend or not? But we will never know. And now the police had a footage of Rustam following Katerina the morning of her death. Investigators believe he followed Katerina to her salon and then killed her. But how did he maintain an alibi? I mean, he had phone records showing he was home. That's the tricky part. So he left his tablet at home, a tablet with his SIM card that was set to after answer. So when he received a call to his tablet, it was picked up automatically. And it was an illusion that he picked up the phone call at home. After he murdered Katerina, he took her phone and made a phone call from her phone to his phone, making an illusion that they had a conversation and he was at home at the time of the murder. So after the murder, he returned home, cleaned everything with the bleach, cut his nails, and maintained a normal activity like nothing happened. 4 months later, the DNA results came back. Those dark hairs found on Katerina's body belonged to Rustam. He was arrested in March 2016. Investigators also found search history on his computer about how to commit a crime, about how to pass a polygraph test, and how to avoid punishment for similar crimes. Eventually, he confessed. His motive wasn't jealousy. It was strictly financial. He was broke and Katerina had money. So he thought that he would kill Katerina, their kids will inherit Katerina's money and he will control it. But no. However, in court he said that he was forced to confess. The trial dragged for years and years, and in 2021 he was found guilty. And, attention, he received a life imprisonment. But it's not over yet. Just 2 years later, in 2023, that life sentence was reduced to just 15 years. But he didn't even serve those 15 years. He only spent 3 years in jail. He was released in April 2024, and now he's a free man. Of course, he lost his parental rights to his kids, and now they're in the full custody of Katerina's parents, so children's grandparents. After his release from prison, Rustam was under supervision for 1 year until April 2025, and that's it. Now he's a free man. This case is wild to me. I mean, killing someone so aggressively, leaving your kids without a mother, actually planning it and being able to live freely your life. In the meantime, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.